let's take a strong scrum. That's a good segue to go into the Lions. The Lions versus Argentina, the scrum was probably the best part of their game. They struggled in other places. Brynner, an understrength Argentine team versus a Lions team in its first outing. Were you surprised by the way that played out?
I was, because I think the messaging around this group, we talked about how much depth there was. And I know there wasn't some players that weren't playing because they were playing obviously at different times, but, pretty disappointing, I think, if you're a Lions fan, to be honest. Like, there's been a lot of stuff coming out of the Northern Hemisphere around this Lions team, and the Northern Hemisphere being better than the Southern Hemisphere team. But, when it comes to these big footies, I'd love to see a percentage of actually Northern Hemisphere and Southern Hemisphere teams over the last 12 months, because I think, it'd be the Southern Hemisphere being more dominant, I believe. So, but that's another day. That's just me picking up around the Northern Hemisphere and having a little bit of a gripe against me.
Get them into the comment section.
But no, look, I think what I was really impressed with was the Argentinians' click attack. Look, the 3 tries that they did score, the ability off the ball, off turnover ball, was really good. Like, they scored 2 tries pretty much, with the 2 chances they did have. They were able to score points off that, and even the first try, it was pretty much a 2-phase strike that they were able to get around that edge defence. And look, I can understand probably that edge defence and getting that wrong with Freeman and probably Marcus Smith in that bunk area. They played a little bit together, but that cohesiveness and being able to have that synergy, you probably get a communication skill wrong there. So that's all good. But look, I think the interesting thing was how much they played. They had a high turnover rate in terms of the 18 turnovers, and look, they were probably a little bit. Their decision-making in and around the offloads was pretty much finding Argentinian hands. But look, you look at the stats, like 406 post-contact meters to 166 of the Argentinians, and
one kick to 9 passes is basically what I think out of the Northern Hemisphere, the highest I've probably seen in club footy this season is 1 to 4.
Yeah.
At 9 passes. So it's sort of that balance of attack, and it's either there's a high offload or they're trying to go to width maybe too early, and they didn't go through the Argentinian pack, and that's where they sort of got their wins around the breakdowns and turnovers. And it just looked like a team that was just new together. Like, you do have to sort of cut them a little bit of slack. Like, and I think probably a warning to playing second 5 centres. Like, there was just a little bit clunky through the midfield there, and they couldn't get their game going. But I will be interested to see if this kick to pass ratio continues, because that's extremely high. They're basically playing from anywhere.
Yeah.
And I don't think they probably won the aerial game either, Bryn. When they did kick, they didn't probably get the pay that they'd be used to. So it was a typical Argentinian victory just through desperation and flair and opportunists and going the distance to a side that was just a little bit clunky in terms of their combinations and that cohesive factor. And I have no doubt they'll get better, but I want to know if that 9 pass is they just thought they were going to run over the top of them, or is that the way they're actually going to play? But we'll only find out to see, where that measures up in their next game. But I was extremely surprised, even with, their line-out. Like, their set pieces, like, normally their go-to. And they had a number of overthrows early, and they just couldn't get that rhythm going. And that's why I just think it was more of a relationship thing than, probably panicking like they're not going to be the side that we felt they were when we read their squad. And there's obviously a lot of pretty key players still not available because they're playing club footy.
The URC and Premiership guys.
That's fair. I think it's fair, but at the same time, the depth that they did have, that we've talked about, that we've heard about from that part of the world, was 100%. So the accountability that needs to be shown to that group, they should have won that game. And you probably actually hear Farrell's messages after the game in terms of, it wasn't acceptable. There were a lot of things that, that he wasn't happy with. That to be a Lion, it's not acceptable. So I think we are going to see a bit of a change, and I think, look, they'll be able to spend more time together, and bringing other guys in and getting that cohesiveness and synergy back together. But look, not acceptable, man. For me personally, they should have won that. They should have won that game.
I know I always say this, but every time Marcus Smith got the ball, he did create things. Like he was
struggled under the high ball zone.
Yeah, but this is why I just don't know why he's not at 10.
Yes.
Like I just think like every time he's just so creative, and I just think if they are going to play this, 1 kick to 9 pass 3 run ratio.
He's the guy.
He's the guy.
Or Finn Russell, obviously, is a very good runner of the ball.
Yes, true. But I don't know. I just think, man, he is just so electric with ball in hand.
Well, it's hard not to imagine, though, that, when you look at Aki and you look at Tuipulotu together, they're going to play Tuipulotu and Hugh Jones together, or they're going to play Aki and Ringrose. They're not going to end up in that same position. Yeah. So that's
big shift from second 5 to centre in the role you play, and it just looked clunky.
Yeah, and Keenan maybe at fullback, Lowe maybe on the wing. There's a few
definitely think Lowe, in terms of effort area and the aerial game and kick chase.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some big names come back, but you have to say, it was still a pretty strong side when you look at it.
Jip talks about the trying of things and, having the ball in hand all the time. There have been times in the past where the All Blacks have gone to a World Cup and they've played one of those games against a lesser team and they've gone out there to do a particular thing that they wanted to practice to get good at. And it's affected their overall performance and maybe what the scoreboard looked like, but it wasn't really about that. It was about an opposed training run. They had 74% of their possession was in the opposition half, the Lions. It feels intentional to me. It feels like they're trying something just to get practice at it.
Well, look, I think if you look at the coaching staff, the Irish is a big part of that DNA of that coaching team. So, look, you look at the passes they had, 230-odd, passes within each other, the post-contact meters that I talked on. So, look, they have to be able to train that and play that in a live scenario of being able to play what it feels like to be able to hold on to the ball so long. Now, look, I probably think if they are going to look back, that ratio will probably go down a little bit. I'd have to think a little bit, but you've got to be able to be on the field to be able to get those passes. So, and I think at the same time, they're probably not underdone, but they're probably, if you look at the week, the GPS week, they're probably training a lot. So they're doing a lot on the field, whether your tank's a little bit empty going into the games because of how much work you have to do on the field in this early part of the campaign. I think we will see it a little bit better, but yeah, they had a lot of turnovers in that game, and sometimes you do get that with a new group coming in and trying to force the pass, and they had a lot of ball. So you'd have to think they'll be a little bit better around their decision making around the offloads, and I guess try not to have that high turnover rate. But they're gonna have to, if they want to play some long phases, they're gonna have to figure out and how get comfortable feeling like you want to hold on to the ball for long periods of time.
Because the ratio of kicking 1 to 3 runs, that's bang on. Most teams operate that.
Yeah.
But how many passes in between to get to those 3 runs? That's the highest I've ever seen.
That's a lot.
And maybe it was purposeful, but
not
you
executed
still
well.
Heard the disappointment, and there was an expectation that no matter what they were trying, they needed to win the game.
Yeah.
And there's just the expectation. It's the best of 4. And I know not everyone's available, but
I would argue that the Lions are at their best when they're based on one team with a couple of add-ins. Like if you think about, I was at that decider in Australia 12 years ago, and it was basically a Welsh team. They dropped O'Driscoll, and there was a lot of fanfare about that, but they went with a team that really, really knew each other. And to some degree, people are probably going to have to lump the fact that this needs to be an Irish team plus a couple, plus Finn Russell or plus Marcus Smith.
And Genge.
He
was unreal.
Yeah. Because otherwise, I don't think they necessarily
and I suppose Satoji, he's the captain. Might let him in there.
Yeah. But do you see where I'm coming from?
100%. Especially in the key positions. Like, sort of your key roles, your twos, your probably your locks, 8, 9, 10, 15. That's probably where you'd say the bulk of it. But when you look at that, there's going to be an English and maybe a Scottish there as well. So, I think there'll be more Irish jerseys and flair in the first test against Australia.
It'd be interesting for Finn Russell, though, if he is the starting guy, to be between Jamison Gibson Park and the Irish midfield. That would be, I'm sure he'd have a lot of fun there, Brenner.
Finn Russell is just that much of a class player. You work in and around him. So, I think if you've got a Jamison Gibson Park at 9, you've got a Bundy Aki at 12, those guys have played a lot of football together and understanding to be able to game manage a side along with a Keenan at fullback if selected at 15. So, I don't think so. I think there's enough Irish blueprints with with that kind of with that selection of the side. So yeah, I think Finn Russell in himself, like, he will be very good in what his skill set is to be able to take this, this Lions team to another level with what we saw kind of Marcus Smith and what he does at 15 if he was selected at 10.